live now. So I'm going live in five, four, three, two, one. Good morning, everybody. This is Lamar. I got Sharon with me. This is Grit, Grace, and Progress. Dope podcast. And you know what? I just noticed this is like really jacked up. I did all my prep this morning, but I didn't realize my wife's robe was sitting behind on the chair back here.
If you hadn't have said anything, we would have never picked it up.
I picked it up and then I couldn't get my eyes wouldn't leave it. I was like, man, what is her robe doing right there? But I know a lot of times she works from home. That's her little work setup behind me. So that's what she used for work. And she'll be sitting up here, fully dressed, but she'll wear a robe sometime when it's a little cool because she has the fan on. So I guess she took it off yesterday. I didn't even notice it. But so Sharon, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Lamar?
Doing pretty good. I see Greg here. Let me go ahead and get Greg in this shot also. Stand by 1 second. Got my man Greg here in the shot also. Can you see us and hear us, Greg? You got your mic on mute, Greg.
I said, yeah, I can hear you.
There you go. There you go.
I switched from my phone to my computer.
Okay.
I told you I was in transit, so
oh yeah.
I finally got to the pad.
I think it's a little staple. I think it's like a little normal now. We see you driving in the car on your way in. And so sometimes we get that. So sometimes we get you during the show like that. But a couple of things that we're going to try to come into on this meeting. We're going to speak a little bit about the Jackie Robinson situation, having his little the segment they had on him on the government website pulled down and then put back up out of pressure. Then we're going to also talk a little bit about the axing of the Department of Education, what the impacts could be. And then we're going to talk a little bit about women. We're seeing the push for more black women in politics. They've always been the backbone, but I got a little caveat to that. I want to try to change the narrative of that a little bit. But something else that caught my attention this morning, I was just scrolling through some of my news apps, is that there's a black woman that created a black Amazon app for shopping black-owned businesses. So I haven't even read the article yet. I just happened to skim through that right quick. But before we get into it, did anything to catch you all, like any breaking news for you all that popped up overnight by any chance, Sharon or Greg, either one? Anything that you all saw?
One of the things that popped into my mind is we think about this deportation action to be of those of Hispanic descent.
Mhm.
And we saw recently where there's a young lady of color that's being detained. And so we are going to have to, I think, anybody, and of course, it's because of her dynamics of being a social activist that they want to quieten, they want to silence. So I think when we see any of that, we need to have some type of, people like that need to have some type of protocol so that they don't put themselves in harm's way. She's in a detention camp right now. And so it's not good for, I think, you never know what demographics of people she'll be put with in that detention center. So that caught my eye.
Right. What about you, Greg? Anything catch your attention?
Well, I've been worried about this sense that the courts have no enforcement arm
Right.
for themselves. Now, you know, most people don't realize that the U.S. Marshals, that the county correction agencies and the sheriffs are really the local enforcement that protects the judges and enforce things for the court system. But this wannabe kingmaker that he thinks he is has decided that he's going to usurp all of law enforcement, and they have taken the time over the last 20 years to infiltrate the military, the police, the FBI, just so that they could have an arm. Nobody ever talked about that speech that Bill Barr gave to the FBI that says this is what we're going to head towards and come up doing. So this system that they've created that's going to empower regular people to carry arms like it's the Wild Wild West is going to be very much an ugly scene, because people are not level. They're not even critical thinkers. You can set them off just by gaslighting them, because they're not going to take the time to research. They're not going to take the time to get knowledge.
Right.
And that scares me.
It should scare all of us. It's that climate. We were talking earlier. It was funny. We were talking earlier. You say how it scares you. We were just talking about before the show started about firearms and how the surge in black responsible, citizens are acquiring guns. And Sharon and I, we talk about it a lot. We're in a gun club here in Dallas, and me personally, I don't get it because of the threat of this particular personal climate. I had it prior to that, but I look at the emboldeness of people and how things can just happen all of a sudden. The next thing you know, you're in a situation. We were mentioning Thursday night we had a meeting and we were talking about. I was explaining to them how, I carry, and the laws and rules that we aren't aware of can cause us to get in more situations, more legal situations with a firearm. In the past, it was more so this stigmatism of, oh, you shouldn't own a gun, or they're going to view you as a criminal because you're black. That is the case, but as we continue to push forth with our own narrative, showing being responsible, that also comes with a responsibility of knowing laws. And I was mentioning Thursday rather, how a situation came up, and I thought these guys were going to say something to me a couple years back. It's like 2021, and I happened to pull my shirt up and show that my gun was in my waistband, and the guys got in the car. In reality, I could have gotten in trouble with that. It could have been where somebody could have said I threatened them with showing them my gun, and I would have been in a legal situation. But the fact that I feel that we should be able to arm ourselves and be able to protect ourselves against any threat, whether it's anyone from your own people or from an outside ethnicity. We should have that freedom just like anyone else without being scrutinized or looked differently. So you being scared, you're not the only one, man. A lot of people are. I was just looking at now, Gayle King just left CBS. I just happened to see this, and I'm like, wow.
Really?
Yeah, Gayle King, she said she's done. The caption says, Livid over network's major shakeup and sees this as a personal attack, and this is her final result. It says here that the CBS Morning Show studio, after she was signed a one-year extension, insiders claim the news host was viewed the abrupt move as a personal attack and a final insult from CBS. CBS Mornings has been punted from its glitzy multi-million-dollar Times Square studio and back into his former home at CBS Broadcasting Center on West 57th Street. King, who's 70, is livid over the move. She sees this as a personal attack. So I'm thinking it's just that show because she's mainly the main host of the show. But this is from Radar Media. So that's where I got the article from. And there was another thing I saw that caught my attention. Where was it at? What is it? Somebody else just left something. Oh, the lady from the Golden Girls, the tall one with the white hair. I don't see her picture now. Somehow, you're scrolling through stuff and it refreshes on your on. But what was the one from? She's the one that played in Maud. I think it was Maud. Tall, the tallest one on the show.
I know who you're talking
I
about.
can't think of her name right now. Yeah, she was in the military, and they removed her page off the government website, the Department of Justice website. She had a page like Jackie Robinson, similar, I guess, for being groundbreaking as a woman in the military back then, and they removed her, and she's upset about it. So I got to read that article, but that's something for people to look up on their own. But I wanted to get into some of the conversations that some of the topics that we mentioned earlier. And I want to start off mentioning that we were talking about the lady from the Golden Girls. Let's get into the Jackie Robinson situation. I've heard many people like Robert Griffin III, former football player and former ESPN commentator, mention that Jackie Robinson wasn't political. And he's a lot younger than I am. And I don't know if people realize that Jackie Robinson was political. Because you got to ask, why was he the first black person in Major League Baseball? If you can answer that question, it then becomes a political conversation. So first, though, either one of you, don't matter. What was your thoughts when you first heard it coming down, and then what was your thoughts when you heard it come back, that they put it back up?
For me, it was just another sign of them erasing African American history. And I, to me, they are trying to make us insignificant in this country. That's their goal, is to make us insignificant and not honor the history that we've made in this country.
Okay.
They want everything to be from the standpoint of white America.
Right.
And so one of the things I will tell you that I got as a takeaway from that action is when people stood up, they put it back up.
Yeah.
And so what that tells me is we have to stop remaining silent during this time frame.
Yeah.
Some type of way we have to get organized. So if you say nothing, they give that as a silence approval. And so we have to let them know that we are not approving these actions.
Right. No, I agree. What about you, Greg?
For me, I don't really care about white sensitivities. So if you want to take it down, try to hide it, whatever, I know my history.
Right.
I know American history. I will teach American history. And you can't ban books, erase facts, do something other than, and it's time for this is just my personal view. It doesn't reflect this group, but someday you have to suck it up. And you know what? Pretend like you weren't born. Just make somebody believe that you're not who you are. Your dad was never there. Community is what holds this country together.
Yeah.
That's how this country formed itself. And if nothing else, the founding fathers understood the need for community. Now, they were imperfect. They were flawed. Some owned slaves, some were free, but you can't erase facts just because you don't like them.
Right. Do you think that by removing these I'm gonna call them these groundbreaking achievements of what you would call the others, they're using filters, AI filters. One of the things is saying the first ever or the first two are key words, and with Black people, there's a lot of firsts in our country, and those are highlighted because we had done so much more before that, but we didn't take ownership of it because, at that time, especially during slavery, when you had all these innovative ideas of agriculture and mechanical things and farming and medicine and everything. They were groundbreaking for this country, but it wasn't groundbreaking in Africa where they came from. This is something they've been doing for a long time. So when they finally had the opportunity, when they were, after the emancipation, where you were considered free and you did these things, they were then considered groundbreaking because it was considered black and being the first to do something publicly from an American standpoint. I had a question. I had put a post up on Facebook on this private group we're in called Prim, and I get the owner of the site kind of gets on me sometimes because he think I ask questions looking for another answer, and that's exactly what I do. I ask a certain question a certain kind of way to get that conversation going, and usually when a person responds that are opposing the position, they're typically the ones who don't really understand. And so one of the questions was, if I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it up in front of me, I was saying that the people who helped build this country to make it the economic power that it is today will be labeled as DEI from people today. And people think, first of all, you go all the way back to slavery, is what people thinking about. Well, in actuality, when I made that post, I was thinking about not only slavery moving forward, but actually currently right now, that every groundbreaking thing that's in a certain field of science or medicine, math, or anything, they're looking at it, oh, you only did this article to make it a DEI conversation. When in actuality, it shouldn't be. It should be based basically, like they're saying, on merit and education and qualifications. That's what it should be. But the fact that was never the case, these things stand out now because these are exceptional people that do these exceptional things. I mean, whether you're a black astronaut, it wouldn't be exceptional if you allowed these people to do this from the beginning. It wouldn't be exceptional for Ben Carson to be this phenomenal surgeon back, when he was he had all these accolades, and before he became a Trump supporter, we thought that Ben Carson had his head together. But if you notice, since then, you don't hear from Ben Carson anymore.
Mm-mm.
And that's the sad part about it, because even though he took a political stance one way or another, it should not erase the historical things that this man did in the medical field. And his silence is from multiple sides. When he was in the administration of President Trump, black people in particular kind of shunned him because of his stance politically. To me, I think we still should have given him his accolades from a medical standpoint. When he left office, they didn't care nothing about him in the first place from the Republican side, because he was a face. If they cared about him, he never would have been over hood. He would have been Surgeon General. But we still shunned him because of his political stance. And it took me a long time to get to this point of thinking about it from this perspective, that I need to still appreciate that black man for the phenomenal things he did in medicine, regardless of his politics. And you got to realize also, people get into politics for a status move, or they're looking to be in some type of fraternity of people when you're in politics. And it should be just for the people, but we see that it's not always the case. And so I use Ben Carson as an example because he's a person that, if he was in the military, he would have been one of them people that would have been a first. And it would have been a conversation. Are you going to pull his picture down also? Are you going to pull that conversation about Ben Carson down? Or are you going to leave him up because he supported you? And as we know with Donald Trump, he only stick with people that were supporters of him.
Well, Lamar, I'm going to say,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it as we shunned him.
Mm-hmm.
I see it that he made himself more public from his position in politics.
Okay.
So that was his political stance in the public's eye. It was not about his accomplishments as a physician, as a neurologist surgeon. So if he had stayed with, that being his most important accomplishment, then that's what he would be known as. But a lot of people may not have known him from that standpoint. And so because he didn't push that narrative, he pushed the political narrative, and that's what gave him that forefront. So I don't see it as we shun his medical accomplishments. It's just that his political stance was the one that met the public's eye. And so,
I like that.
Because I'm going to tell you, I had read his book a long time ago, and I really adorned him after I read his book, looking at his early life, what he went through from the mental illness of his mother, and then to turn himself around when he got in trouble as a youth to be a well accomplished surgeon. I mean, I adored him. And then when he made that I still love his story from a medical standpoint. Give him all the accolades he deserves. However, of late, it was like that was not his narrative. It was a political stance that was his narrative that was kind of negative towards our people. And so I just couldn't understand when you think of his background and how he was able to change his whole narrative. How could you forget your own people?
Yeah, oh, I totally agree. No, that makes me stand corrected in that. It helps me change my perspective a little bit by you saying that we didn't actually shun him. He actually put himself in a position to be, I guess, looked a certain way because of his political stance. The way he was out front with it, when I guess more examples could have been used for. I guess he could have talked more about it. Well, it's hard to say, man, because he actually ran for president too. Wasn't he in the president's race too? Presidential race?
I don't remember.
During the primary? Well, I thought he was in there too, wasn't he? When he had Trump, Rubio, and Ted Cruz, and all
on the
folks,
debate.
when they was running for
vaguely
the 16 presidential debates and all that. You muted, Greg.
You still muted, Greg.
You muted, man?
While Greg is trying to find his button, I'm going to say people like Ben Carson and a few others, I think they're going to get they are getting their wake-up call. So I don't know if you saw the story with Michael Jordan had been he's in some exclusive country club where he golfs in Florida. So for many times he's gone on the golf course with his attire being against their rule. So of late, and it was cargo shorts. Of late, he went on the golf
I saw that
with cargo shorts on. It's an 18-hole golf course. He made it to the 11th hole, and they came out and told him he needed to go change. So golf is a very mental game. So he's like, okay, I'm not gonna go change right in this point in my game, break my he didn't want to go change. So because he didn't want to go change, they told him, guess what? You're not welcome at this golf course anymore. So they target now. Before that, it wasn't a problem. But now that we're in the climate they're in, they are showing him exactly what they think about him, and his money, even though it's green, means nothing to them now because his skin is black. So a lot of people like Dr. Ben Carson now are going to get a big wake-up call, just like Michael Jordan did.
Well, you look at, I was looking at this about Ben Carson. He formally announced his candidacy for the Republican nomination in 2016 presidential election at a rally in his hometown of Detroit. That's on May 4th, 2015. And on March 4th, 2016, a year later, Carson ended his campaign at a speech at CPAC. That's when he endorsed Donald Trump on March 11th. So he was going to run at that point, and then he pulled out of it and decided to go and getting back to when you look at the Department of Justice, taking these people down. I think that it's something that's going to lead into a conversation about the Department of Education, because this goes hand in hand. If you look at the people that they're removing down or putting up, and like I said, Jackie Robinson was such a legend that there's no way you can just keep him off. So I think that's why it was the pressure that brought him back. But then you have these young people who are doing the filtering and all that's removing things. They probably don't even know who Jackie Robinson is. In my opinion, they probably have no idea of the legacy of Jackie Robinson, and they've never heard none of Jackie Robinson's speeches because in his late years, he still was on the same stance of equality in our country. So that shows to me that was just out of pure ignorance. Now, these
But Lamar,
Go ahead.
let's don't get it twisted though.
Mhm.
They are only following orders.
Oh, agree.
They are
Agree.
following. They are not looking at, oh, you know what, we don't need to remove him because that's Jack. They're not looking at it like that.
No.
They were told to scrub their website
Right.
of African Americans, and that's exactly what they were doing, was following orders. The only reason he got put back is because of the noise that was raised.
But that's a question that could have came up. Although they're following orders, there have been pushback throughout the different agencies already on certain things. Now whether they go through with it or not, there's been a discussion to some people who have knowledge of what they're doing. That's been the whole issue with the whole DOGE thing, is that a lot of these people that are put in these agencies, the different agencies, federal agencies, do not know the procedures and the history or the knowledge of those positions. That goes to the same way with why they had to bring back so many federal workers. You had federal workers that were considered under probation. So you had a 90-day probation. They went through the website. They scrubbed everyone who was and fired them that was on a 90-day probation. Those people who actually did the work of removing those people, all they saw was 90-day probation. They had no history of those individuals. They had no history of the job they were doing. They just said, well, it's 90-day probation. You're being fired. It's a waste of money right now. They didn't realize that these workers had decades of history of working with the federal government already. 20, 30 years. The only difference was they just got a new job, a new promotion. That doesn't mean they were 90 days in the company. They were 90 days in that particular agency or that position.
You said something that was very, very powerful, and why it's being done the way it is. They are not analyzing anything.
No, nothing.
So in order to know that there's waste, you have to go in and do an audit.
Yeah.
So they are not doing that. They're not studying the process, the procedures, the cost, the budget. They're not doing any of that.
Yeah.
They were told delete 90-day probationary employees,
Right.
and that's what they did. So that's the danger of having somebody like Elon Musk that's in control of this, because they are not operating from a business professional standpoint. They are operating from a standpoint of go in here and scrub as much as you can to save on the budget. They do not care what the position was, how important it was, if it's needed or not. That's not their protocol.
Right. No, I agree.
That should not be a surprise.
It's
That
not.
should not be a surprise, because the last Trump regime put people in positions that had no background or understanding what the job was.
But this is worse.
Just so that they could call him and say, what am I supposed to be doing? There were so many guardrails up that he couldn't dismantle the presidency and take over like he did now.
Yeah.
They have other people now that are all trying to chase this dollar that doesn't exist and think that they're going to get paid, which they're not, and will rather burn down this country rather than try to find a way to make it good for everybody. So, we talk about the culture of Black people. Ben Carson, had he stayed in his lane, would have been no problem. but because he entered a sphere that is mostly controlled by white folks,
Mhm.
because how black folks think about one another is controlled by white folks.
Yeah,
People don't want to get that.
yeah,
People think, oh, I'm my own man. But you got this boss that you working for making you think that you're supposed to take ownership of this job while you making him live his dreams. And that's the whole point of what slavery was anyway. Now they just have to give you a little something, something.
yeah, yeah.
It's the same work ethic. It's the same productivity
Mhm.
rules.
Yeah,
It's the same process of getting the job done because I need you to get the job done. And matter of fact, if you can make it better, you go ahead and make it better.
Mhm.
I'll take credit for it.
Right. No, no,
And
I'm
and
with you.
and that's always been the case, generation after generation. But I still stand on the fact that the reason why Black women are so strong in this process is because that's what they do for civilization, for the culture. Black women take care of the family, take care of the environment. You know, Black women can get together and form a culture and an environment that the men show up in there and they do their part to defend and protect and provide. But the business sense, who gets what and how to be fair,
Right.
that all comes from the women. At my father's age, and my mom and dad have been married 70 years. My dad has been dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's for 30 years.
Hmm.
Um, he still trusts my mother more than his own memory.
Okay.
Okay. And that's just the foundation I was taught from father to son across 4 or 5 generations. When you find a good woman that's going to take care of the family, that's the one you keep.
Hmm.
All these gold diggers and money grabbers, and they are everybody worried about themselves buying into society. You know, it's hard. It's hard for us as Black people because each of us have been scarred and maligned by this oppression that we live in, and we each deal with it differently because God created us separately. He didn't
Hmm.
create us in a batch,
Right.
you
No, I
know.
totally agree.
So, you know, we have to learn how to be forgiving to one another, to allow them to understand that yeah, you going down the wrong road, bro, and you might be mad at me, but I'd rather you be mad and alive than loving me on your way off the cliff.
Yeah.
It just the way I am.
No, I hear you. Makes sense. Um, when you put all that into just a summarized version of it, when you look at, like you were saying, how we treat each other, how our viewpoint is. I mean, that's what Joyce DeGruy used to talk about. It's like this slave PTSD, this trauma that comes through, and the way we respond uh, in our this current generation are things that have been handed down just from act of habit in some ways of looking
But let
negative.
me let
Go
me
ahead.
let me interrupt you just one
Sure,
second. You were
sure.
talking about the gun culture, right?
Yeah.
Um, I was not allowed to have cap guns,
Hmm.
right? My parents didn't tell me about the police killing folks, but they knew that I should not have a cap gun. I
Hmm.
should not have toy guns,
Right.
you know, and because different families raise their children differently, we end up with a situation like Tamir Rice. Kid
Hmm.
was doing nothing but playing by himself. He had his little gun and watching TV and
Hmm.
whatever. And, you know,
He's at a park.
I got a
Yeah.
grandson, 4 years old, right? He's fascinated by a ray gun. I'd rather him deal with monster trucks
Hmm.
than guns.
No, I totally get it. No, I totally get it. And it's I look at it in various ways. I get exactly what you're saying because of just our overall society. We're looked at as criminals. That's the whole point of changing the narrative. the more the high rise of black gun owners now has to push that conversation more and more. But we can't be silent. And when, say, someone like yourself who says, I'd rather not have one, support me who want to have one. You know what I'm saying? In the past, we would knock that other, like you were saying, how we were viewing the other person. We've seen a black person walking in the street. We'll look at them suspect like, that don't look right. We've been trained to think these certain things. So if you look at it from the state that we're in, the current climate we're in now, and you have more and more black people buying firearms, not only just to have it on them, but are actually trained to handle them properly, it should be respected from our own community, whether you want to have a gun or not. And that's the push that we're trying to do. Sharon just said she doesn't carry her gun regularly. She's the president of a gun club. She's the president. But I respect her position, and she respects my position that I carry wherever I go. You see what I'm saying?
The difference is you have more experience than I do.
Well,
I'm not. I'm new at it. I'm still in training. So I choose not to do it at this point right now because I feel I'm too new at it, and I don't have enough training behind me yet. Now,
but you
when
both
I do
respect the gun,
right? When
you
I
both
do
respect the gun,
right?
When I do feel I have a little bit more. Now, I'm gonna tell you what I always do though. I'm going out of town tomorrow. It will be in the car with me because I'm on the highway by myself.
Yeah.
And my mom and I will be staying. It's in rural Louisiana. We can't see another house from where we will be staying.
Yeah.
And so, but mine is not a stance that mine is more of a safety and training issue is why I don't do it daily right now.
But that's what I was saying. It's the fact that we respect each other as black people on our stances. It shouldn't, whether you become a everyday carry person or not, I'm not looking you any differently as a black woman with that's a firearm owner. Whether you did, we have members in our club that don't have a firearm. Remember the lady, we just did a non-lethal self-defense class. And we had a woman named Latanya on there. Remember that she said she doesn't have a firearm.
Yeah. And we have one that came because it was non-lethal.
Right.
Because she does not want to have a firearm. And so we respect that. We don't push that. We don't try to sway her and tell her that is her stance. And we do have something that's valuable to her, which is the non-lethal training. And we respect that.
And you know what's even bigger that we have to offer? It's something Greg always talks about. We have a community.
Yeah.
We have a community. And that community is, the thing about the community is not just about the firearm aspect of it, but it's the communication part. It's the awareness part. It keeps us woke. You know what I'm saying? We know what's happening. We're communicating through chats about not only what's going on politically, but we also do things. There's one lady who does things for the schools. We have a school drive. We have another guy who helps collect with with blankets and socks that we take to a shelter. So there's so many things that we're in community with. It's just that we all came together through a gun club.
And see, what they don't want you to know about Martin Luther King is
he was a gun owner.
even though he did not promote violence, he had armed protectors.
Yeah, deacons of defense.
And they knew what his schedule was.
Oh, yeah.
And okay, so now I can comfortably project this.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
So when you're in community, everybody plays a part. Everybody plays a part.
And Martin Luther King the Martin Luther King with the
Citizens for the Defense, I think it was called.
Deacons of Defense.
Deacons for the Defense.
They were all deacons. And the thing about it is, like you were saying, that he had this nonviolent approach. That's how every gun owner is supposed to be. A nonviolent approach. The whole point of it is that I want to get home. You know, it's a nonviolent approach, but it's a last resort for defending yourself. So when you look at it from that
Yeah.
perspective,
Mhm.
with if you look at historically through our country, whenever there was a black uprising or revolt, especially in the late 1800s, it was to the fact of this is my last resort. They didn't go out trying to seek to kill someone who was a racist or nothing. It was like you came to me, invaded my space, my personal space, threatened my family. I have my last resort of self defense, and that's it's you look at it as being unfair, but that's what happened. Life isn't fair, and that's something that just recently, I think last week's sermon with our pastor was that life is not fair. We're seeking equality, and that's something that we've been seeking for day one here. If you look at it from a biblical perspective, a godly, I'm not gonna say biblical per se, but from a godly perspective, um, just the fact of your relationship with God the Father, that um, you're going to go through things that someone else is not going to go through, and you're going to have some privileges that someone else may not have. But if it comes down to love or how you view your neighbor, your family, just someone close to you or anybody, if you treat them with the same respect that you want to be treated, equality is going to automatically happen.
But what you need to do is decide, is what I'm doing glorifying God?
Yeah,
Because each
definitely,
of us were made for the purpose of bringing God glory.
definitely,
Now,
definitely.
he doesn't care about what you look like. He made you to be who you are.
Hmm.
And he has grace. He forgives you. He allows you that process as
Hmm.
long as you're on that path to
Hmm.
bring him the glory that he's entitled to.
Hmm.
He, she, whoever, the creator and the ancestors are undefeated.
Yeah.
Now you can flex all you want to down here. I, we talked, my brother and I, a long time ago that it's better to prepare to meet God and realize that you don't need to,
Right.
than to think that there ain't no God, and then when you die, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, I agree. I agree. We're
Yeah.
not, we're, I'm gonna pivot a little bit and change a little bit because I think that we have an understanding here on this one in regards to how we treat one another, and we're on the same page of understanding of why the Department of Defense decided, or Department of Justice, or the Department of Defense decided to take down any first achievements or accomplishments by someone other than a white male off of their website. I haven't been through the whole site myself to really vet it and see what's still there. But I want to switch it to this one. So it's an organization called Center 1968. It's on a mission to train and elect more black women in politics and policy. This is from the Griot magazine. And just starting off here, it says when Jasmine Sessions observed the political landscape, she was disheartened to see that practically no black women worked.
Let's take US 75 South, Central Expressway Allen, and I 635 West, Linden Beach,
We going somewhere?
Dallas.
We going somewhere? We going somewhere? Where we going? I'm always good for a road trip. Where we going? So it says after successfully training black women to run for political office in her home state of Pennsylvania through the She Can Run program, resulting in graduates like Sherelle Parker, who went on to become elected Philadelphia's first female mayor, Sessions decided she needed to go a step further. Without training us, investing in us, and connecting with us, we are really struggling, Simmons said, a long-time political fundraiser who has served in various roles in government relationships and higher education. So there's where the Center of 1968 comes in. The center, named after the year Shirley Chisholm became the first black woman elected to Congress, builds on the work of She Can Run, expanding beyond getting black women to run for office to include training and policy to become staffers in political offices. The center honors iconic Black women in politics with a fellowship named after former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan and staffer program named after Valerie Jarrett, the former senior advisor to President Barack Obama. To date, 13 women have graduated from the center, and a handful of them have been placed in jobs as policy experts. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. I love
saying center or center?
Center. It's the
Okay.
1968 Center. I love this idea, this program. My thing is, why put it to just women? I've felt this way for a long time. I just didn't know. You don't want to say, well, we need more Black men to make it feel like you are saying push back the Black women. That's not what I'm saying, because the Black women have been the backbone of the Democratic Party, and actually any political party in regards to politics in general, when it comes down to making their voice heard and being the push for activism and change. My issue is, after the Civil Rights Movement, we really didn't have a collective group of black respect. I ain't gonna say not respected, but Black men and a collective pushing policy and things of that nature in politics. The women have always been there, and I always viewed that the Black men was considered a threat to our society. They were murdered. If you think about everyone down from Medgar Evers was just trying to get people to vote, was murdered. And so that's my thing now. When I look at the Black men in politics right now, and mainly, you look at the Democratic Party, they're not as voiceful as some of the women, and not standing in the forefront of making their stance known. And I think a lot of this due to fear of being attacked or persecuted in a certain, saying in a few words like that. Cory Booker's been in politics for a long time. And a lot of times we look at it also, there's that money behind them. The money of, you have to stay in your lane because you don't want those donors to pull their funding away from you and take away your lifelong benefits of being in politics. The two guys from the Justins, I can't think of their last names right now, down in Tennessee. Those are some of the most vocal Black men that's in politics right now. They're staying up front. You have even to a certain extent with what's my man from Georgia in Congress, the pastor Warnock. He says things, but then he don't have the fire though. You know what I'm saying? And I feel that people are put in a position to be silent. I've yet heard a man with the voice of Jasmine Crockett. Yet.
But that's wrong.
What's wrong?
That's wrong. We shouldn't look for them to appeal to our sensibilities. We should be on board to push them, if they're an elected representative, to push them to where we need them to be.
Exactly.
We each have our own fire.
Right.
Now, so much of this country is sitting back and looking at images and making judgments on people's character from the images they see and say, well, they need to be like this and like that. Black people have been indoctrinated to think that there's a certain amount of charisma that's needed to be in the public sphere.
Right.
But the real work is done on the ground behind the scenes, and that's where most of the women are.
Well,
the women come together. The women come together to push and put somebody out there that's going to benefit them. But you made a statement of why is it a woman's thing? We don't understand as males the assault that has always been on Black women.
Oh, I do get that. I never said why.
So
I never said why.
For them to have a space that they create for them to push the issue, then we need to join in and support the issue.
Totally.
But men think you're supposed to do it my way. And when men get involved with women's things, they just try to take over and overtalk them. I've been guilty of that at some time.
But that's not what I said, though, Greg. I started off the
That's what I heard.
No.
I'll go back and listen to the tape
the
again
first
and hear that question.
The first thing I said was I fully appreciate what they're doing. I really like this. I said, but I was saying is that why aren't men involved in that?
Because it's a women's thing.
No, I get that. I get that part of it. The reason why I said that is because if you look at historically with black men in politics, they're like I use Cory Booker as an example. I'm not judging his character. I'm not saying he should be that one. I said that I would like to see more of those men in there because those are, if you notice, black men that know how to unify people, speak truth to power, and getting things done are a threat. We've seen it historically; they are a threat. No, there's no ifs, ands, buts about that.
Or they are perceived as a threat.
That's the word I want to use then. Perceived as a threat. Is that not true?
That is true. Go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, a lot of times, we think, and I'm gonna tell you that happens to us in corporate America as well. A lot of people think because they don't hear you that you're not doing nothing and you're not being effective or you don't know how to do it. But we don't realize there's also strategy behind what they could be doing by being silent. They're doing it on the background. They're doing it in partnering with whomever to get a law passed, to put a lawsuit in against these actions that are being taken. And sometimes they have to be silent because if they raise too much noise, then they will be silent, And so there's this lie that continues to be put out. And so they will be targeted. And then now they're not effective because of the lie and the narrative that could be put out there. Look what happened to Al Green.
Right.
Al Green was very vocal. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Look what they did. The climate that they're living in now are operating in now is you be too vocal. I'm gonna strip you of the few duties that we have afforded you, because that's what I don't know if they've done that yet, but whatever committee Al Green was on, they want to strip him of that.
Right.
And they're empowered to do that.
Him.
Yeah, they censored him.
Right. They censored him. And he should not have been. Because Marjorie Taylor Greene wasn't censored.
Where was the collective? That's the point I'm making. Where was that collective of people? Where were those men? Like you said, the men, even if the women didn't stand, if just the men that were there.
But there are not enough of them. There are not enough of them to stand up for him. They're outnumbered.
Right. I got that though. But you have to stand though.
But Lamar, again, you have to look at it from a strategic standpoint.
Okay.
Because if they are too vocal and stand up too much, they would be just in the same position that Barack Obama is in right now. Because Barack Obama made it to the presidency, then that's why we are in the climate that we're in now, because they look at, okay, we're taking our country back.
Yeah.
They're in a catch-22. And so if we're going to have them there, then we're going to have to allow them to do what they do from a law or let me give you another example. What we were told, some of the narratives that they told us is, you remember there was a time when we weren't allowed in a lot of the corporate jobs. Then we started seeing we had more of a presence in a corporate job.
Yeah.
And so what they told us is do the same thing that they do. Use the pen and paper. Fight them with the pen and paper.
Right.
So we have to look at that's what possibly those men are doing. Okay, let me give you another example of how they perceive us. So I can remember when my background is in accounting. At one time, I was trying to get in sales, and so I would go to this organization's meeting. There was a man there that could have pulled me, and he was a white man. He could have pulled me into a sales position. And so the way they perceived you is if you don't talk a lot. So he said in the meetings, and they were not corporate settings, they were outside of the corporate. It was a sales organization that I was involved in, that he came to the meeting. He said the reason why he didn't give me a chance because I didn't talk enough in the meeting. But that had nothing to do with my capability.
Right.
Just because you don't hear me talking,
Right.
even in the corporate meetings, they perceived you as that too, as an African American, if you're not very vocal. But a lot of times we're not. I'm like this. If I don't have something and I'm not in knowledge to add value to that conversation, then sometimes they just talking. They're not saying nothing. They just talking.
Right.
But they're not saying anything. And so the bottom line is my stance on it, and I hear what you're saying, but my stance on it is even if I don't hear them, I know Warnock, Pastor Warnock is strategically working in the background because of who I know he is. So I know he has to use a certain strategy to be effective so that they don't try to strip him of what he's there for. And that's the way I look at it.
I totally agree with that. The only reason why I took the stance I took today with it is because for the last 4 years, all you've heard was the messaging of the Democratic Party. It was the messaging. And I know through history, when a man messages properly and he messages with authority, a black man with authority, and he could bring people together, he's effective. The only difference is in the past, they were killed. And so I totally agree and I totally understand the strategic stance from the background. I get that. I support that. Only point I was saying was that we have others or people that can come into the ranks that are not bringing the voice. And I think that male voice brings so much unity. And you mentioned it earlier, Greg was saying that we don't respect black women. That's been a fact throughout history. The only reason why Obama was selected was because he had respect. That was a respect thing. They gave him the respect. Not saying they never thought he probably was going to beat McCain, but they gave him a level of respect. And he had the voice to bring unity. He brought people together.
Think about it. But think about it though, Lamar. He was the president, right?
Before president, though, senator.
But let's look at him though. Let's look at him as being the president.
Yeah.
Now he was the highest rank in this country, but yet because he was a man of color, he was limited.
Yeah, totally.
He was limited, and so that's what happens. Even though we would have liked for him to do more, say more, all of this, he was limited. And so he even had to be, but I'm gonna put it to you in this manner too. I will say this: you can only do 2 terms, right?
Yeah.
So the only thing I have to say to it is some of those things that he could have done, then if he should have let the hammer down in his second term, what did he have to lose?
Oh, agree. Yeah.
But he still was gonna. It's kind of like even in corporate America, you have some that get the ranks all the way up to CEO.
Yeah.
But just because he's the CEO does not mean he has free reign to do what he wants to do, because there's only so much they're going to allow him to do as a man of color.
Do you think he would have been more effective if he had remained a senator?
That's hard to say.
No.
You don't think so?
No.
I think
had he remained a senator, he would not have gotten the for lack of a better term, prestige on the world stage.
Oh, that I agree with. I agree with that.
Yes.
Had he remained a senator, he would not have been able to showcase and set up some of the foundations of the change that even Biden was able to draw into to create some things that
makes sense.
benefited our people.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
And so I want to be that one.
Yeah.
I want to be the voice of someone that inspires you to think. I want you to research and prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Because I can be taught, but we have to have a conversation.
Right.
And if you're not coming to me with receipts, if you don't have reasoning behind what you're telling me,
right,
then all you have is a conspiracy, and conspiracy is what has gotten us in this stage right now.
No, I agree.
To make an assumption without any proof.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have a whole society that thinks they know better than the professionals that have taken the time to study. And I know for a fact, when I look at a football game, I love the entertainment. And I get mad. I'm a couch quarterback, you know. But to be the one standing on that field, reading the defense, seeing who goes where, if I move this person here, how are they reacting? On that level of study, I have no clue.
Yeah.
And so, you know, come on, y'all.
Yeah.
We need to keep this country together. This is an experiment. It's only been what? 1700. This is 25. It hasn't been 1,000 years yet.
Yeah.
No, most dynasties last for 1,000 years. That's what the Nazis wanted, was 1,000-year right.
Yeah. So I agree.
But
I agree.
And you know,
my
Lamar,
family's waking up, so I'm going on mute, God.
Yeah. Well, we're going to end it soon. Yeah.
Yeah, Lamar, I will agree with you on this stance, is that we do need Black males to organize our people that are not on the political stage.
I agree.
Because that way, how do you say it? They if they would stay in the background and organize and give us as Joe Madison said, give us the movement, because we don't need a moment right now. We need a movement.
You're right.
So we do need some Black males in the background strategizing to unite our people. I don't know if you listened to that 5-minute spiel that Reverend Otis Moss III that I sent out. I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to listen to that, but somebody, that's what we need.
Yeah.
We need unity, and we need strategy, and we need somebody that's not being see, in the like you said, in the political realm, they have sponsors, so they have to be careful because of those sponsors. We need them to affect the laws that are being put out. We need them there to see their eyes on that level, to see what's going on and keep us abreast and fight on that level. But what we need to organize as a people, we need that out of, I think, the political realm. Because think about it, back in the day, most of those people that pushed the movement were not at the White House.
Right.
And we still made big strides, even though they were not on that stage. Right. And so I think that's what we need right now. We need to have people that can organize us in unity and with a movement to fight what's going on right now.
Totally agree.
And like we need more of, I would like to get the information with the young lady that has started the Black Amazon. I would like that. More of that is what I'm looking for.
Right.
And to make you laugh, because sometimes we can get so tense in our conversations. Yesterday, I have not been to Target. It's been a while. Even before they did the boycott, I had stopped going to Target. Yesterday, I was out and about and I needed to go to the restroom. And I said, you know what? Target is still good for one thing. I'm gonna stop by Target because I was in the shopping center where there was a Target, and I walked in there only to use the bathroom.
Oh man! And with that, we're gonna wrap this up. I really appreciate you all having this conversation with me,
Definitely.
and you all have changed my perspective on some things. I guess I would say I'm probably the youngest one in the group. That I've learned a lot from both of you all from a maturity standpoint. You've been around enough to see some things that I haven't seen.
And we've learned from you too as well, Lamar.
Absolutely.
You always do some great research, and I like the fact that this is what I like about you. When you do bring up a topic, even in the other group that we're in,
Yeah.
what you do is you do the research, and when you come back with receipts, factual receipts.
Yeah.
And I love that about you, and I take that from you, and I like seeing the information that you share. So we are a sponge off of each other.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I mean, that has been my stance. That I see a lot of people that respond out of emotion and don't give any facts, or they give talking points. And the more I remember as a kid, my dad used to say, "You just ask too many questions." And what I've learned was that asking questions was for my benefit, but as I always say before, the questions are for those that are around me as well. So you can tell off the bat when someone knows they're talking about it when they don't. So if I bring some research in and bring facts in there, it's always for the greater good of everybody and not just to try to change one person's mind. And I think you all know who I'm talking about in this conversation. So, people tend to go off on their own tangents. But anyway, we're going to wrap this up. Again, I want to thank you all for coming out and spending this time with me this morning. And hopefully next week by the way, we may have a midweek event podcast this week. It depends on how it comes down, but we may be discussing the Department of Education sometime this week with some special guests. So stay tuned for that. And other than that, I'm gonna hit the gun range in a little bit. And
keep me abreast, and if I can make it, I would like to join you guys.
I definitely will do that. I'm going to go ahead and push our logo live to the stream, and we will be out of here shortly.
Well, enjoy the rest of the weekend. See you later, Greg.